All right, so in today's episode, I want to talk about something that I think is integral to living a well-rounded, full life with variety and multitudes of perspectives and insights about the world. Because I'm continually reminded that we, each of us, are little micro universes. Each one of us, the entirety of your experience of this reality, it's occurring between your ears, right? It's information that's going into your brain and then being processed in real time. And so all of us have this unique perspective of one. And that's the only way in which you can see the world is through your eyes. But what you can change is you can change where your eyes are located relative to the rest of reality. Now, if you stay rooted in the same place all the time, right? You stay within this 5 square mile radius of where you habitate, then that becomes the singular focal point of your reality. And that's how most humans operate, right? They live somewhere, they work somewhere, and then they drive between those two. Maybe they have one other spot that they frequent, and then that becomes the triangle of their life, and they don't really go anywhere beyond that. And so they have this myopic viewpoint of reality. And I think one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself to expand your reality, to expand your perspectives, and to understand that there are more options in the world is to go and see more of the world, to engage in what I call expansive travel, where you intentionally get outside of your radius, your comfort zone. You move and you go see a different place, a different people, and you experience the world through their perspective. Now, from a practicality standpoint, I was reminded of this because we spent a couple weeks in Italy earlier this year. And one of the things, it never ceases to amaze me when I travel to a foreign country, how so many things I took for granted as just being the way it is, because that's the way my life is around here, right? Like, I see it through a very particular perspective of a Minnesotan from America, middle-aged white male, right? I see the world and I engage with it in a very particular way. And then when I go to Italy, little things that you wouldn't even expect, such as your power adapter does not work in Italy in the same way that it does here. And that might seem like a really small thing. And yet I'm guessing every single day you use electricity where you live in a very particular way. And you take for granted that everybody else in the world uses it in the same exact way. And then you're confronted with, oh, holy crap, you guys have an entirely different infrastructure. You use an entirely different, my thing doesn't work here. How's that work? Why don't we have the same one? Or just even having a difference between the metric and the imperial system. Going to different places and meeting different people, you realize there are different ways to live life. That you take for granted that everybody is doing it what you do. And the truth is, no, actually, you're in the minority. Most of the world is not living the way that you do. And that can be very, very powerful for helping you understand that your perspective is not necessarily the right perspective, because that's natural, right? You see the world through the lens of your own eyes. And so it's natural for you to assume that your perspective is the right one. And then when you go out and you travel somewhere else, you meet new people, you understand how they view the world, you go, oh, actually, this isn't black and white. There's all these spectrums of gray. And we can look at food, we can look at sport, we can look at language. All those things are the really obvious ones. But when I travel, I'm always struck by the non-obvious things that just kind of, they jump out at me, and I'm like, wow. This was back in 2008. My sister, Kristen, and I, we were traveling through Europe, backpacking for a month. And we stayed at her friend's house in Sweden, in her little apartment. And I remember her shower was just a hose connected to the toilet. There was no curtain. There was nothing. And I was like, what is this? This is how you shower? Like little things like plumbing. And you're like, how do you guys operate over here? How is it so different? Have you guys not figured out? Or you go to France and they're like, they don't have toilet seats on their public toilets. You're like, what's that about, guys? It's weird. But yeah, there's a different way of living here. But all that's to say is expansive travel and intentionally getting outside your bubble and stepping outside that comfort zone to embrace the different perspectives and ways of going through the world, I think is a valuable experience for everybody. And what you might discover along the way is that, oh, I actually like the way that they do it better. I actually think that is a better system that they have over there rather than the one that we have here. And yet if I had never been exposed to it, if I had never seen it, I would have just maybe poo-pooed it or just never even, I just would have remained in ignorance. So if you in this next year can make some space for expansive travel, that doesn't actually have to be international expensive travel, right? This could literally just be go to the city next to yours. And sometimes that can be enough to be like, holy crap, you guys are weird over here, right? Like get outside of your bubble. We'll call it your 5 mile bubble. Most of us have a 5 mile bubble. Get outside that bubble. The further you get, I think the better it is for your overall personal growth. So I'm curious, where has been the biggest culture shock or the biggest perspective shift that you've traveled to, right? Like for me, that would have been, well, Antarctica was a pretty big perspective shift, but like Europe isn't that crazy. Asia is really crazy to me. Asia is way crazier because it's so culturally different. So that's a really big one. But I'm curious, where's the biggest culture shift that you experienced? Let me know. Share it in the comments or leave it in a review or DM me on Instagram, however you want to get it over to me. I'd love to hear from you guys. So that's going to do it for me. I will see you in the next episode. But until then, stay hyper-focused, my friend.